Canada is in chaos and we need to talk about it. Welcome back to the Freedom Pines podcast. I'm your host, Jamie A.B. This is where we debrief and discuss pop culture and politics from an independent perspective. And if that interests you, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this with your friends because it's hard to get my name out in Commie Canada. So let's get into it. So we have a lot to get into. I'm going to be talking about the home on native land situation, okay, and what a joke that is, the upcoming election, and how I actually think this is happening, and we're going to talk about why I think this is happening, okay? We're going to be talking about the teacher strike in Alberta and whatever else I can think of along the way, okay? So let's get into it. There's so many things to talk about. I couldn't even have a cold open today. Canada it's insane here. There is not a single day that I don't wake up and there's a million more things for me to listen to and understand and read about and just watching. It's crazy. Okay, so let's get into it. Number one, home on native land. Okay, first of all, how dare you? How dare you? If you actually want us to be a serious country, Canada, I suggest not going to the place that wants to take us over and delegitimizing our nation at length. Are you guys kidding? I thought you guys were over this nonsense about you want to celebrate Canada. You don't want to be America. I don't think you want to be Canadian either. Because I don't understand why this would ever be an appropriate thing to do and why people would cheer this on. Okay, though, if there's one thing that you guys could do to show your allegiance and respect to our country in a country who wants to take us over, it's sing our national anthem correctly. Okay, and to change "And all thy sons command," which, by the way, I hope it makes you guys happy that every single school that I've ever worked at, and I was a substitute, so I've been in a lot of schools, plays the "And all thy sons command" version. I had no idea it was actually changed until I watch, sports games or something like that, okay? I had no idea that for some reason, the left always loves to do this. Instead of actually helping homeless people, they just changed their name to unhoused and it makes them feel better about themselves, okay? I listened to this lawyer on TikTok and she kind of made it seem like if anybody wanted something from that land, it would just be the government having to pay Indigenous people for that, and that nobody was ever going to lose their property. However, mortgages are not being renewed there. So something fishy is happening here, because we all know that I don't think Indigenous people will be the ones to benefit from this. If we have looked over history, how many times has the government said that they are helping anybody really, and then turned around and made everything absolutely entirely worse? Almost every time. So yeah, you might want to think about going to different countries and disrespecting the country and delegitimizing the country, okay? Because it's already being delegitimized right under our feet because of the people that you guys voted in who benefit when all of our industry leaves Canada. So, let's stop doing this. Either, talk is cheap, okay? So leave then. And to be honest, I don't know what these other countries, how they justify all of mass immigration, because I'll tell you how lefties justify it in their brains. Somehow, after learning about what happened to the Indigenous people, out of this, they got mass immigration a good thing. Okay. Yeah, I don't understand it, okay? But they feel guilty because the government makes them feel guilty for something their ancestors probably didn't even partake in, okay? If you're like me, I'm only like a third generation Canadian, and none of my grandparents were in the RCMP, had no idea what was going on, had no idea they were given land that was promised to other people, okay? They had no idea, all right? So once again, don't know how the UK, because in my mind, isn't that where white people come from? Honestly, it doesn't make any sense, because you would think that the whitest people would be in the north. You know what I mean? Not saying that Indigenous people weren't here, because they were, but when people tell me to go back where I came from, I'm like, I would be coming from a cold climate. I am white as a ghost. I am almost see-through in the winter. What do you mean? This is where I belong. I burn in the summer. Where else do you want me to go? It's like we have no right as anybody to be able to have anything to want to even go back to. And that's what's the sad part, is that they've convinced people who look like me that worrying about their own demise, which would be called something around a something side, if it was any other race that it was happening to, but it's happening to us, so we deserve it. That's what the left thinks. So anyways, let's move on to this imminent election that's about to happen, okay? And I'll tell you why I think it's about to happen, okay? And tell me why I shouldn't think that the NDP is purposefully waiting 1 year after knowing that they were losing their leader to have this leadership race, that this isn't purposeful to allow the Liberals to have a supermajority. Just like Jagmeet Singh admitted that he threw the NDP under the bus to make sure MarkCarney had to win. One day before the election says, never trust a Liberal. Never trust a Liberal? Oh, do you know from experience, Jagmeet? Like, someone tell me why, other than this is some orchestrated plan to have the Liberals take over, okay, why the NDP wouldn't do their leadership race early. And I don't want to hear money, because the amount of money that they have to enter the race into should give them enough to be able to run some sort of leadership race, okay? It's not the Conservatives' responsibility to put through a budget that they know is going to drown Canada. It's the Liberals' responsibility to not spend so much it's going to drown Canada. Okay, and they're like, well, the Conservatives are going to have to explain. No, the Liberals are going to have to explain why they haven't gotten a deal, why no one's invested in Canada, why they think spending our money and putting our economy and tanking our economy is justifiable in any sort of way. This is not on PierrePoilievre. I don't think PierrePoilievre wants to have an election, because we all know on the Conservatives that we need an NDP solid leader to be able to have this election so that it's fair, in the sense of people on the left don't want to have to vote for MarkCarney. The consensus I see on TikTok, okay, there might be a couple of people who stick up for MarkCarney that use a real voice, okay, like their real personality. And I don't know if they're being paid or not, because they all magically appeared during the Canadian election, okay? So I have my doubts of the validity of how much truth they speak. But I will say one of them actively does, not approve of some of Carney's decisions when it comes to the P versus I situation. If you know, you know. But for the most part, people don't like MarkCarney on the left. They don't like that he's a technocratic billionaire who is in bed with Jared Kushner and all of these different things, okay? They don't like that, and they do know the average young leftist. I'm not talking about the seniors, but I will say every senior that I have talked to that likes the Liberals and voted for them to be able to go up against Donald Trump, MarkCarney specifically, they are not happy. No matter how much the news paints him in a good light, they are not happy with how much. You cannot convince the Canadian public that Trump is borderline Hitler, okay, and then have MarkCarney go there, kiss his ass, and not get a deal. The Canadian public is, they can only be swayed so much by the media, and not even this is swaying them. I promise you, the majority of real life people I talk to are completely sick of this. But I will say the majority of real life people that I talked to last time, like my husband says, he has never met somebody who was voting Liberal in the last election. Not even the women at his work, like nobody. I mean, I don't think he knows but he said like nobody stood out to being a Liberal voter whatsoever, and he literally couldn't believe that PierrePoilievre didn't win the last election. He genuinely, and that's just my husband, I'm just telling you guys that as like somebody who doesn't pay attention to politics whatsoever. He was dumbfounded and didn't think it was real. The average Canadian thought that, okay? So overall, I definitely do think we're going to get an election because I think they're going to take advantage of the NDP not having a leader, okay? And whether the NDP is doing this on purpose or not, it's simply, I just don't see the excuse that they would ever have to put this off so much, okay? And now we're going to talk about the teachers in Alberta, because honestly, you would think that Danielle Smith just put out a $75 million ad to cancel trade talks with Canada and America. No, that was Doug Ford. Okay. First of all, small classroom sizes, they are better. As somebody who's worked in education, if your kid is in a rural school, you're way better off than if your kid's in the city. Why? It doesn't necessarily mean that kids can't learn, okay? It's that if your kid is falling behind or stuck in the cracks, they will not be helped out of those cracks in a larger setting, okay? So it's better for the kids who might be falling behind, and you never know. Your kid could go through something, and that could be your kid, okay? So if you are a parent who wants your kid to have a smaller education experience, I would think about moving to rural Alberta. Okay, just putting that out there, because no matter where you are in the city, they're not going to be able to, like, portables exist obviously, but the more people that we continuously bring into our provinces and overload our social systems with, this is going to continue to happen. And Danielle Smith needs to put a stop to that, okay? And the left needs to admit that that is what's going on, and that is a problem. They can't, okay, because the unions hold education, children's education hostage, okay, against them to get what they want from the government. And they're a lot less willing to work with a conservative government than they are in DP. I've seen it myself, okay? Not sure how that's allowed, but it is. So overall, what I'm saying is that if you want a better education for your kids, move to a place where there's better education. Okay, I'm not saying that that's always the easiest option, but if you can make that a 5-year goal or a 3-year goal, great. Because I'm telling you right now, no province in Canada in a major city has really good schools anyways. And Alberta has the best education system from what I've seen. I need to know if your guys' union pushes the gender ideology stuff. If you're willing to let me know, please email me. I can keep you completely anonymous, because I know how serious the union is with threats of nobody better ever see this or you're getting sued. Because the main problem in Ontario is DEI measures, and I know that you guys don't provincially have those. So I want to know, is that what's happening here? A big problem in Ontario is that we have DEI, which means that the kids who have issues with behaviors are in the regular classes. We're finding a lot more kids with behaviors. There's not enough support. And they just allow kids don't have consequences to their actions. So this behavior just keeps going and going and going and going, and nothing gets better. So I want to know, is that happening in Alberta? Because I know that even when the DEI measures were not happening here until now, because Doug Ford invested $500 million into it, the unions and the school boards were still pushing it. So stop letting so many Canadians in. A smaller classroom is better for your kid, but you can also change that yourself. I did. I moved 7 hours north, and now there's 15 kids in my kid's classroom. So in a split class of 7-8. Anyways. Oh, and remember that not every teacher agreed to this strike either. And we in Ontario in 2019 did strikes before the Panini Press started, and it was rotating strikes, because not only do students fall behind when your school is out for weeks on end, okay, so do the teachers, and it's really annoying. So we did rotating strikes, where 1 week the teachers, 1 week, 1 day a week they would strike, and then the next week it'd be a Friday, and then it'd be a Thursday, you know what I mean? And that was a lot better. It didn't hold the kids' education hostage. It did make, now I don't really agree with it, because we legitimately have 2 months off for you guys to do this. So get it done then. Actually, there should be no excuse. Okay, you shouldn't have to strike during the kids' education. If there's one time I do think that you guys should be forced back to work, it's when you're destroying our kids' education. Our kids cannot afford to be left behind even more. The teachers didn't fight for the bodily autonomy, okay? And I'll keep in mind, they can't. You can't go against the grain or you will be fired. You're allowed to basically have CAS be called on you because someone witnessed you abuse a child, and the union will do nothing about it. Maybe they will in Alberta. You guys let me know. But I've seen it for myself here in Ontario. Basically, if you have conservative values, that's when they don't like you. Anyways, tomorrow's Halloween, so I'm going to be recording a video probably later today for tomorrow, so I won't be like up to date. Tell me if you guys trick or treat, if you guys have kids, if you guys have trick or treaters at all. We are a big community of trick or treaters. Now, there's so many people who say that trick or treating is evil. Okay, but they have no idea the chokehold. Like, I think that my family costumes have done more for the pro-child movement than any other advertisement. Okay, hold on. Look at my baby. This is my daughter. We're at Toy Story here. We all dressed up as the Incredibles. This is my daughter as Sally, and my adorable son as Peter Pan. Guys, seriously, if I paid attention to every single thing being demonic, guys, that would be everything. I wouldn't be able to do anything. I've prayed about it. So yeah, I think I've done more with those photos to make people see how much kids are worth it. Okay, I've prayed about it, and turns out spending time with your family is what God wants. So that's all I'm gonna say about that, because honestly, I have people tell me that I'm worshiping the devil and doing all of these things if I participate in Halloween, and I just think that's a load of BS, because there's a million traditions. Like, the first time I learned about it was Catholic. So anyways, guys, that's all for today, and I want to take a deep breath. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I hope you guys remember that if you're here, okay, it is for a reason, that God loves you, and you guys, life is worth it, okay? And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!